Hersam Acorn newspapers, publishers of the Greenwich Post, New Canaan Advertiser, the Darien Times, the Ridgefield Press, the Weston Forum, the Wilton Bulletin, the Reading Pilot, the Lewisboro Ledger, the Monroe Courier, the Eastern Courier, the Trumbull Times, Fairfield Sun, Shelton Herald, the Stratford Star, the Milford Mirror, and the Valley Gazette.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
Welcome to HAN Radio's Behind the News, the show where three veteran Connecticut news editors go behind the stories with the columnists, photographers, reporters, and editors who covered them. They will discuss not only Hersam Acorn stories, but take a look at the media landscape in Fairfield and Westchester counties. They will discuss it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. With John Kovach and Josh Fisher, here's your host, Kate Czaplinski.
Thanks, Rob. Well, we are live outside beautiful Palmer's Market in Darien. We have a lot to get to today on Behind the News, including a discussion we had earlier this week with Jill Dion of the Milford Mirror on her coverage of a murder trial and sentencing. John, what else do we have coming up?
Well, Michael Katarivas is joining us from the New Canaan Advertiser. He's covering a very emotionally charged hearing that's pitting police officer against police officer with at least one job on the line. Josh?
And we're also going to be joined by a former colleague of Michael Katarivas and mine. I guess he's still technically a colleague. Aaron Marsh is scheduled to be here from the Darien Times. He's the editor of the Darien Times. And with us being in Darien, we said we have to talk some Darien news. They'll get jealous if we talk about too much New Canaan news down here. Those are two of the biggest rivals in the state, these two towns. But right now, let's welcome in Michael Katarivas, managing editor of the New Canaan Advertiser. Michael, welcome back to Behind the News.
Yeah, thank you.
So you've been covering this case, which just a little background is it's the head of the police union, John Milligan in New Canaan, was charged with basically wasting $33,000 of town funds for his because he never took his ex-wife off of his health insurance?
Basically correct. She was on his insurance when they were married. Then very shortly thereafter, they got divorced. That was like 4 years ago. And he never actually took her off his insurance plan. She had her own insurance plan. She works in the Danbury school system. So it's not like she didn't have insurance. And he never took her off, and it came to light. And the department has started proceedings to have him terminated.
Right.
How did it come to light, Michael?
Well, it kind of in a strange way. It originally began with a citizen in New Canaan who had a grudge against the police officer from previous arrest, alerting the police department that John Milligan, the officer, was allegedly having an affair. And the police chief decided to chase that down to find out if it's true. And it turned out not to be true because he was divorced. And then he further found out, the chief did, through kind of interesting circumstances, that John Milligan's wife was still on the insurance plan. And the way he found that out, according to his testimony at the court hearing on Wednesday — it wasn't a court hearing, as a proceeding on Wednesday, which was very strange to hear, was that he said that his wife told him.
Wow.
That his wife told him that she heard a rumor from someone that his John Milligan's ex-wife was still on the insurance plan.
And this has gotten rather, I mean, it's you. So just some background. If you can see all of Michael's stories at ncadvertiser.com, but you filed at least 3 stories on Wednesday during the trial.
Correct.
And then another one yesterday. Right, or was that one was late on Wednesday night?
Yeah.
And then a longer one today.
Well, the longest one I filed the night of the on Wednesday night.
Right.
I was posting as things were happening. I tried to
which was rather interesting. I know we were reported on it during coffee break on Wednesday, and then later in the day on some later updates. But so what happened is you have this police commission. It's a 3-member panel, right?
Correct.
They're kind of the judges here.
Yeah.
There's lawyers and people swear an oath before they testify. but the judges or the police commissioners are also asking questions.
Correct.
And then we even had Roy Abramowitz, who was the guy who originally did file the complaint saying that that Sergeant Milligan was having an affair.
Correct.
As you wrote, storm into the police hearing room right now to
yell at you, right?
To yell at you, right? Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, he's kind of a rebel rouser in town, so to speak. And as the proceedings were underway, he suddenly came into the room and came right over to me and hovered over me, saying like he didn't like the way I was portraying him in a story just an hour earlier. And one of the police commissioners immediately told him that it was not the right place or time, and he did leave. And I mean, subsequently he also called me and said that he had not stormed in, that he had walked in, and he wanted that word changed. So I went online and changed it because I'm not gonna. It's just it wasn't germane to what was happening.
Right.
But I mean, I think the most important, what I was getting out of it, because I had no idea going in what was going to happen. There was no information before this.
This is rare, particularly in New Canaan, for this to happen.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was just going to be a very cut and dried procedure that John Milligan had his wife on the insurance. They found it out. The town was out $33,000 for her premiums, and that he was going to get terminated. And that seemed like that was all it was about. But then you found out a lot of different details about what seemed like could be a conspiracy almost. The police chief seemed to have it in for him. John Milligan was the union president of the police union. They just had a very contentious contract negotiation, so he was obviously disliked by the higher-ups. And it just seemed to me, from everything that was coming out, that Milligan gained nothing from the insurance, nothing. Both sides agree he gained nothing financially. There was nothing to gain.
And he's argued throughout that this was a conspiracy against him, correct?
Well, no, he hasn't argued. He hasn't actually said anything, much of anything. He's been quiet. He didn't say anything at the hearing.
Okay.
But his union lawyer representative has alleged that there seems to be some sort of, conspiracy against him to get him out. And when you heard some of the details of the case, especially with Krolakowski admitting that his wife told him that his wife brought it to light, how would his wife know anything about the specifics of an insurance company's private records?
Right. And Michael, what I think is really interesting in your stories is you do entire conversations. Like you've written out, there's some heated exchanges and you have these all kind of listed out. Was that tough to get all those together? Did you have a tape recorder? What did you do?
I had the computer and I was just typing fast.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they weren't racing through the questions.
Right.
Because a lot of times they were questioned angrily, and Krolakowski would maybe pause for a second to think of what he wanted to say. But I hadn't covered that many court.
Right.
It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a court, but a session where they were, asking
similar
questions.
to a court.
Yeah. So I thought I should get that down.
Yeah.
Questions and answer form.
And these were some heated discussions. I mean, what would you talk about some of those? I know first there was his lawyer questioning the human resources director, correct?
Yeah, the human resources director came on first, and it's a major point of contention that Milligan says that he told her that he was divorced.
Right.
And now she claimed that he may or may not have told her that he was divorced, but it was his responsibility to go into his personal records or have someone go in and take her off the insurance. So that was a major point of they were trying to decide who's right and who's wrong, and they were asking her, and she was not arguing with his lawyer, but she wanted to try to explain things, and he wanted yes/no answers. And at one point, he got quite angry and said that I don't want any explanations. I want just answers. And the police commissioner at that point interrupted the proceedings and said basically said this is a small town, you don't need to grandstand here. And that got Eric Brown, who's the lawyer, even more upset, and he started raised his voice quite loud and said,
you want to see
I don't
grandstanding? Here's some grandstanding.
Yeah. And he basically said, I don't care what anyone thinks. This man's job is in jeopardy, and I'm going to ask the questions I want and get the answers from the questions I want without anyone trying to give their opinions of the answers.
If he saves his job, how comfortable is that work environment going to be?
That was another very interesting point that I found interesting. They brought in a Connecticut state prosecutor to basically give his opinion of like how effective Milligan would be, whether he was found guilty or innocent. So like this man who had nothing to do with the proceedings, was not part of any investigation, just a Connecticut assistant district attorney, basically was just reporting that it didn't matter if Milligan was innocent or guilty, he shouldn't be a police officer anymore.
Well, and sorry, go ahead. But I just think that as in my time in covering the New Canaan Police Department that I did for over 2 years and covered Krolikowski becoming the police chief there. Milligan and Krolikowski never really seemed to get along anyway, John. So
no.
And Milligan did organize, and Aaron Marsh, who's going to join us next, actually covered it, which was great because it happened at 5:30 in the morning. Milligan, when they were the contract negotiations were going on, got a bunch of police officers to go to the train station in the morning as all the commuters were coming and passed out flyers. They did a little kind of not a protest, but a little
informational picket. They refer to it in organized labor.
Right. There you go. So. And that certainly, I know that didn't make Krolikowski, happy's not the right word. He kind of, but he has a pretty thick skin at least from what I've gathered covering him. But he worked hard to become the police chief here. And I know that probably ruffled some feathers too. And not everybody, it's a pretty big police department also. There's about 50 officers there, and it's a small town of 20,000 people. Not everyone's going to get along also, particularly, and Leon, who rose up through the ranks in that police department over the past 20 some odd years, that's you're not going to maybe make a lot of friends necessarily doing that. I always thought Leon was a good police chief. He was very easy to work with to get information, which was more my biggest concern as when I was editor of the New Canaan Advertiser, was about getting the right information and getting it in a timely manner. So that I always enjoyed my working relationship with him, just to get that out there.
He did seem at this hearing, from his answers that he had, it seemed to me that there was something personal there, because they asked him at one point, well, okay, if he can't be a police officer on the street arresting people and going to court for whatever reason, could he take a desk job of some sort? And the chief said, no, that was impossible. And I was thinking to myself, why would that be impossible? Right. There's officers in answering the phones, or there's in the I don't know. There has to be. I know there's officers who they're not all on the street.
No, there's desk sergeants who do the dispatching. I believe.
Right. Exactly. And I don't know what jobs are available. I just thought it sounded a little strange that he said that was an impossibility, or it couldn't happen. That would happen. He had to go. And the main thing that I found hard to believe, just when I was listening to it, I was just reporting it, was that about his wife. He said that the day after he started an investigation, out of the blue, from nowhere, his wife, having no idea that there's an investigation, told him that this particular officer might have his wife still on insurance illegally.
So is there going to be a greater investigation now as to how that happened?
So then the district attorney, the attorney for Milligan asked him, well, what did you do when you found that information out? And he said, I didn't do anything. He said, well, did you tell the investigators that your wife and your wife's friend found this information that's pretty important to the case? And he said, no, I didn't. Why didn't you? And he flat out said, I didn't want to involve them. So, I talked to the lawyer afterwards, after the case was over, and he said, obviously, that this case is going to be continued until on May 29th. He said, well, we're going to subpoena his wife, and we're going to subpoena his wife's friend who told him this rumor, and go from there. So, it just seemed very strange to me, some of these details.
It's a
bizarre
long continuance
turn.
period, too. A long continuance period from
that
the
is.
14th.
Well, no, it was supposed to be the next day. The next day, Thursday, was the next day they were supposed to have it, and for people's schedules couldn't line up, so they just continued it.
How have people in town been reacting to these stories?
They're getting a ton of hits. But I mean, it was only Wednesday. It was only 2 days ago. So people haven't been calling the newspaper. So I couldn't tell you how people are reacting to it. But obviously they're reading the stories. And I put another one up this morning because I felt, the first major story on Wednesday night was a very long summation of the case. But then I wanted to also break out what I felt was like an important detail, which is the chief holding back details from the internal affairs investigation, which he admitted doing. So I also had some quotes from the lawyer. So I kind of like added a little bit of detail to that and put that up this morning. So I think that'll probably get some play as well.
Well, Michael, thanks for joining us. This is certainly something I've enjoyed following your coverage on ncadvertiser.com.
Thank you.
And it's this kind of neat little small town court action that we don't see that often here in Connecticut, particularly down here. But when you do see it, it's great that you've actually sat in there all day long through these things and filed these stories as it's gone on.
I just wanted to make one other point.
Please.
Sure.
That I'm just obviously the reporter there covering what's happening, but both sides admit that this Sergeant Milligan had nothing to gain whatsoever. He couldn't have gained anything, and he didn't gain anything, and his wife never used the insurance. So he was claiming that, for the most part, it was a paperwork oversight on his part. The person, the woman at the who was in charge of the paperwork, admitted that many people, no, not many, but I mean, it's not uncommon for people to make mistakes with their paperwork. So my point was like, well, if there's nothing to gain, why would they want to fire him just because it might look bad in a future court date as an officer? I found that a little strange.
And he's offered to pay the money back.
He's offered to pay the money back, and he just wants to hopefully
maybe something for an editorial or column that you should write. Just with these questions that remain out there.
Yeah, I'm planning on hopefully at least putting those points out there to let people think for themselves what they think of these things. Because there's no coverage of it. I mean, I was the only reporter there basically, and it's not like a big court case, but I mean, there's some major things happening on this one. It could lead. You never know. This could lead to some people. Other people
really,
losing jobs.
It sounds like it's starting to expand.
Yeah, really interesting story. All right, Michael Katarivas of the New Canaan Advertiser. We're going to take a break, and we're going to bring on Aaron Marsh of the Darien Times after this.
Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics. Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332. And online at stratfordsmile.com.
Spring is finally in the air, and our favorite season is upon us. The Dock Shop is all geared up with a great selection of fishing tackle, custom fishing rods, and all the latest accessories to replenish your tackle box. The Dock Shop has also just brought out the newest spring fashion apparel from Montauk Tackle, Altered Latitudes, Kaylee Smith, and Margaritaville Apparel. Need some new foul weather gear for those chilly spring mornings? The Dock Shop is loaded up with Grundens and Stormer in a variety of styles and sizes. Ladies, we've got you covered as well, with spring apparel and the newest designs of coastal jewelry, bags, and accessories. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, Connecticut. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Does advertising on HANradio.com work? Just ask Coastal Orthopedics. They ran spots with us, and within 24 hours they had 21 walk-ins and 8 calls to their new immediate care center. To advertise on HANradio.com, call 203-417-5199 and ask for Marianne Hersam.
You're listening to Hersam Acorn Radio.
It's 12:24 on Behind the News, live outside Palmer's Market in Darien. I'm Kate Czaplinski with John Kovach and Josh Fisher. You can listen to us at hanradio.com or watch us live streaming on the HAN network. That's hanradio.com/livestream. And we're joined right now by Aaron Marsh of the Darien Times, because we're in your town, so we made you come talk to us.
I hear that. It's good to see you guys. How you doing?
Good to see you, too.
Yeah. So you recently moved to the Darien Times from the New Canaan Advertiser, right, like a month or two ago?
I guess about, a month and a half,
right?
Almost 2 months.
How are you making the adjustment? You know, these
Yeah,
big
how is it
rivalries.
different, you know?
Well, it's interesting because these two towns are so comparable and they're such big rivals, and they're thought of as kind of, almost like two peas in a similar pod, but they're not. You know what I mean? There's a very different sense, I think, in Darien to New Canaan that I've found.
Yeah.
And it's not just the sound. I think that counts for something, right?
Well,
You have
the
the
sound
sound,
certainly is huge. Yeah.
But I think if you look at Darien, it's like more connected. There are more train stations here. You've got, there's Norwalk right tucked in here. In Stamford, there's a lot of people commuting in and working in Darien, which gives a different flavor than your New Canaan sort of a little more like lawyers and jewelry stores kind of. You know what I mean? That higher, more
hidden
expensive.
Away, pushed back a little bit.
It's less accessible.
Yeah.
And that's why you always had, I covered police in both towns, and there was always much more going on in Darien because of I-95.
Yeah, particularly when the Howard Johnson's was still open before it became a competitor of this lovely establishment that we're staying right here, which is family-owned and operated here in Darien.
93
The Palmers
years.
are doing a great job here. It's a lovely place. I used to ride my bike here when I was a kid. I lived in Darien for a little while when I was in middle school, and I used to ride my bike down here, and there was a video store across the street. It was kind of a nice little, it's this nice little Connecticut, New England town that has someone built a big highway to run through it years ago.
It's interesting because this area we're in here, the Norotan Heights train station and this whole surrounding area. I just did this article. It was one of the things is that they see this as an area that's really ripe for some new development. So you've got, I think there's something like 4 or 5 sort of apartment complexes or condo complexes that are going to be redeveloped and expanded and things like that, and might go up, and they're expected to go up. So this whole area they're expecting could be real up and coming, kind of a really neat looking place. They want to maybe get some state dollars in here and do
the
some
whole
things.
transit oriented development where everything is within a quarter mile or a mile of the train station, and it really could be. I know I was kind of shocked at how it's, and I used to cover Darien. It's almost all gyms down here now. At one point you had your donut places and
It's
it seems to
cyclical.
have changed.
The donuts places get really
guess,
popular. Then they have to build
Then they need to
gyms.
build
Then you gotta
gyms.
work 'em
And
all.
then
Yeah,
everyone, and
exactly.
then the gyms, people stop needing to go to the gym, so they bring in more donut
I know,
shops
right?
and-
In the parking lot right next door, when I pulled in this morning, there were people doing lunges with weights in their
Oh,
hands
wow.
through the parking lot. And I
This
was
is
like, good for
always-
you
this has
guys.
always
I was
been
trying to find a donut.
And I was eating donuts.
This has always been an interesting area of Darien, because downtown Darien, which has the Post Road running through it, and it has gone through this amazing revitalization over the past 10 years. And really just looks absolutely amazing, so much better than it did, I know, when I was a kid and when my family moved here from Ohio. And the downtown Darien was not as nice of a walkable area. There weren't as many restaurants as there are down there. They had these really strict zoning laws that Yvonne Klein, actually the former first selectman of Darien, was here earlier when you guys were on coffee break. She was coming in here to do her shopping. She's now the state commissioner of housing. So it was nice to run into her, and she and I had a nice little conversation. It didn't get a chance to really talk about that, but she did a really good job of pushing that along with some great business owners such as David Genovese, the landlord at the Darien Times office over there in the Corbin building, and the Dulcettis and some others downtown have done a really good job of making this, but once again, into a place to come to. But now Norotan Heights sometimes feels like it's kind of the forgotten area of town. When the sidewalk sales happen, they'll do some sidewalk sales down here, but most of the traffic goes down to the Post Road. But there's a lot to offer here. That train station is very popular to take. There's a lot of parking there. We're a football's pass away from it right now, and there's a lot popping up Johnny's Seaside is apparently back there. Marty was saying before, which I haven't been to down here. When Tom Golden died, it's Phil Kraft. How are you?
Phil Kraft.
Phil Kraft, head of the Darien VFW down here. Oh, do you? Do you?
He has a scoop.
Uh-oh.
Phil Kraft has a scoop for us. We're live. Why don't you come back here? Come back here behind the.
Here, I can give him my
Yeah,
headphones.
we got an
Come
extra.
this
We
way.
have an extra.
That way,
headset
Phil. Here.
Oh, you do? Okay, great.
You never know who you're going to see at Palmer's.
It's a community market.
Seriously.
Is this one plugged in, Rob?
I can.
Come back here, around here.
Back around, Phil.
Maybe Kate.
I'll get out.
All right. Live radio video here.
Come on over. Put these on.
There you go, Phil.
Phil Kraft.
How you been?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
you. So Phil is the head of the VFW here in Darien, involved in a lot of veterans organizations.
Right.
Used to run the amazing parade
Yep.
that goes down the Post Road and helped our paper out so much, the Darien Times, with the wonderful Memorial Day section that we put
Coloring
together each
contests
year.
that we've done.
And
That was his brainchild.
No. Happened long before me. Linda Brooks started that.
That's right.
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 So I just inherited it when I was editor of the Darien Times for 7 years.
Yeah.
Susan continues to do a good job. I don't know if you've met Aaron Marsh yet, who's the new assistant editor
Nice to meet
at
you.
the Darien Times. But this is just such a great veterans community. As one of two state veterans
It is.
cemeteries.
There's a lot
here.
available for veterans here. We have a national charity, National
Right.
Veterans Services Fund. I'm the executive director. The Darien VFW. And here's the scoop.
All right.
As of last Wednesday, we had installation of officers. And after 15 years as post commander, I have stepped down.
Whoa.
And I'm being replaced by a Desert Storm vet, Scott Vanderhayden.
Okay, yeah.
So he'll be coming in as commander.
Oh,
And
excellent.
behind him will be Lenny Hunter, Vietnam veteran. He worked for the post office for years,
Okay.
beloved by the entire community. He's the senior vice commander, and then behind him is Brian O'Malley, junior vice commander. He's a West Point graduate, and he served in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Wow.
So, we've got a lot of guys in line, and leadership is.
So This is really actually like huge news because
First time I've aired it publicly.
Really? Wow.
15 years as commander. I figured,
no, because it's like when you think of veterans at Darien, it's just synonymous with Phil Kraft.
It truly is.
And Gene Coyle too.
Oh.
I think is someone certainly also always worth mentioning in that vein.
Right, and Gene's going to be Grand Marshal this year.
Oh, is he?
Oh, is he?
Oh, that's
The parade.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
I always say, and. No offense to anyone else standing here, but I think Gene Coyle is one of the nicest men in town.
Absolutely.
No question.
It was always a pleasure. I always had so much fun, and I never served. My dad served, but really working here gave you such an appreciation for all the work that the veterans do, and coming back, and just how much this town really celebrates the men and women who have served our nation.
It's true. It's very true. And the cemetery, there's a constant restoration going on there.
Oh yeah.
And we've even gotten the state back involved. It's their
great.
cemetery.
Right.
But we got them back involved, and somehow you'll remember a few years ago, Rick Gutowski spearheaded a cleaning effort to get the headstones cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
And he did research. He went to Arlington and asked exactly what you're supposed to do to clean it. Don't use this product, use just this. And so we got volunteers from all over the community. We got power washers. The state got involved. Now, suddenly it's okay to use a product. And the state has been coming down and doing it. If you notice, the headstones are like whiter and brighter.
Oh, wow.
So they've been using whatever this product is. So we're looking like a more and more like a mini Arlington.
It's very solemn. The state cemetery there. It's right across from the new library and the police station.
Mm-hmm. And there's a stone to commemorate the Gettysburg Address.
Right.
The past. What was her title? Linda Schwartz.
Oh.
The
Commissioner of Veterans Affairs.
Commissioner, that's the word, yeah. And but she got that stone for us and a tree that's planted behind it, the witness tree. It's a honey locust from Gettysburg, and that's there. They got a new stone to point out the fact that we have a Medal of Honor winner interred in the cemetery, Oscar Peck. And so that there's all sorts of things going on, trees and plantings.
And you had those great granite benches, right? They were put in around the World War. It's not. It was made. It was after World War I. The statue. It commemorates World War I, the Spanish-American War, the War of 1812, right?
Yes.
And the Revolutionary War, I believe.
The
Civil War, rather. The Civil War, yes.
Right.
So a lot of people don't know that too. The home of the first veterans' home in the nation was here. Right over there, right?
Up there.
Up there.
The Fitch home.
The Fitch home
for soldiers.
Yes, which had a lot of, and there's Chris Kalin now. We have a lot of people here showing up here. But which then later became the Ellen O'Neill property, and now is called
the Heights.
The Heights. But a great history here.
Yep, and the Darien VFW building is the only surviving building from the original Fitch home.
Oh, right, wow.
And as of March 11th, this past spring, the building has been added to the register of Connecticut historic buildings.
Oh, congratulations.
Very cool.
Which means a lot to us, because then we can actually proceed with some restoration efforts and to restore some of the interior without having to go through a lot of new codes and stuff, because it's a historic building.
Yeah.
So you can't really change all that stuff and bring it up to code, because then it's not historic anymore. So that's.
Well, Phil, you've done such a great job in this town, and you helped organize the parade. I know you passed the baton on that a year or two
we still
ago.
oversee it,
of
and
course.
we still make sure that there's a ceremony in the cemetery. We have a speaker, Chris Pintaro, 1998 graduate from Darien High School,
great.
Annapolis graduate, Navy vet, still very active, and he's going to be the speaker. And it's going to be, once again,
it's always a fun event.
Great parade.
The parade's always a good time. Every time I've gone, I've been so glad that I was there.
Yeah.
It's that small. All the towns have parades, and every town's parade, of course, is special. But there's really something about the Darien parade, and maybe it's because it ends at the State Veterans Cemetery, or maybe it's just all the people who are involved in it.
It was conceived as a procession to the cemetery.
Right.
That's what Decoration Day was all about.
Right.
When it started.
That's right.
I got one other scoop for you.
All right.
Speaking of parades, the Push-Pull Parade.
Yes,
on July 4th. The sponsorship has been assumed by the Darien VFW.
So no longer the YWCA?
Right.
Oh, congratulations.
So they have passed the baton on to us.
Yeah.
And it'll still be for children. It'll still be on the 4th of July, and the route will still be the same.
And that's a fun parade, because it's really just all about the parade. It's not about watching the parade. So everyone's in the parade, and they all dress up in red, white, and blue, and you have Uncle Sam on stilts, and everyone just walks down the post road.
It's like the favorite part of the cupcake.
Right,
It's the icing.
That's it.
It's like the good stuff.
But I think it is the post road that makes the Darien Memorial Day Parade special, that makes the push-pull. The fact that you have the post road, you march right through the heart of your downtown.
Yep.
That makes it
and the audience
what it is.
The audience.
The audience can be right there.
Every new member we get in the VFW for their first parade, at the end of it, they are by the middle of it, they are so moved by the outpouring of gratitude and respect that I got to tell you, as a Vietnam vet, we didn't get.
Right.
and to see every year to go down the middle of the post road and have people just standing and cheering and shouting thank you, and it's great.
It's great. Well, listen, we got to take a break, but Phil, I'm so glad that we ran into you today. It's great to see you
rattling on here.
No,
it's great to see you,
it's
Phil.
Fun. It's So one of the good guys here in this lovely town on Long Island Sound, and you never know who you say. We were just saying, you never know who you're going to run into at Palmer's. We're running behind, though. We should have Jill Dion coming up next, though, to talk about a murder trial she just finished covering up in Milford. You're watching Behind the News on HANradio.com.
Spring is finally in the air, and our favorite season is upon us. The Dock Shop is all geared up with a great selection of fishing tackle, custom fishing rods, and all the latest accessories to replenish your tackle box. The Dock Shop has also just brought out the newest spring fashion apparel from Montauk Tackle, Altered Latitudes, Kaylee Smith, and Margaritaville Apparel. Need some new foul weather gear for those chilly spring mornings? The Dock Shop is loaded up with Grundens and Stormer in a variety of styles and sizes. Ladies, we've got you covered as well with spring apparel and the newest designs of coastal jewelry, bags, and accessories. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, Connecticut. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Alliance. We are an industry leader in coordinating transportation for large events such as corporate roadshows, conferences, and special events. Our team of experts understands the dynamics and logistics of high-pressure situations and complex arrangements, all within a rapidly changing environment. Since 1999, we have added charter jets, event management, and personal protection to our range of services. Mention this ad for $25 off your next round-trip reservation. Alliance and you. Together, we can achieve the extraordinary. 855-546-6996 or alliancelimo.com.
It's Lots of Characters, specializing in children's birthday parties with your child's favorite characters. When you want to party hardy, when you need to celebrate, call us, we won't be late. We help create lasting memories for you and your child on their special day. Call us at 203-590-1791 or visit our website at lotsofcharacters.org for more information and to see our party packages. Lots of Characters, 203-590-1791 or online at lotsofcharacters.org.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com.
We're back on Behind the News on HANradio.com and streaming on the Hersam Acorn Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski here with Josh Fisher, and joining us is Milford Mirror editor Jill Dion. Jill, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, certainly.
Now, Jill, you've been working on and covering an interesting murder trial, and recently the sentencing of Matthew Pugh. He was just sentenced for the murder of Alexandra Duché.
Right.
And he was sentenced to 60 years.
Right, 60 years for murder and 20 years for burglary, but they're served concurrently, so 60 years total.
Can you give us a little background on this case? What happened?
Well, the murder took place in 2006 on Booth Bay Street in Milford, which isn't far from Jonathan Law High School. At the time, I remember there was a lot of media attention, and as I was saying before we went on, around that time there were other murders in Milford. This was one of them. And for all these years, it had gone unsolved. And it was only in recent years that it got out of the cold case file and police came forward with someone that they could charge with the crime.
Wow. I mean, was this person ever named as a suspect before? Was Matthew Pugh involved or?
Not before he was arrested.
Okay. And did police say if there was some piece of evidence or something that tied him to it?
Well, there was some evidence that came up during the trial and even in the affidavit when he was arrested, and that was a piece of tape. And it was kind of a rare piece of tape that he had at his place of work.
Wow.
So it wasn't fairly common, and I guess it was found, a little piece of it was found on part of her face.
And what was his relationship with her?
Well, they had dated. He was about 10 years older than her, and according to the affidavit, they started dating when she was about 16, on and off. So they were on and off for a long time. And during that time, he actually went to jail on other charges. And she tried to break it off with him while he was in jail, but he sent her threatening letters, saying, you have to give me your attention, you have to be with me. And so while she tried to get out of the relationship, he kept threatening her and even threatened that, from what I understand, that when he got out, if she wasn't there for him, that, she would pay.
Wow.
The prosecution, Jill, seemed to really kind of paint as Pugh's past had a long history. So when he started when he was 16 years old was the first time he was arrested, and he had a lot of other charges. Like you said, he was serving in time. So how much of the trial, which you covered a lot of, right, was it more about his past, or was it about this particular crime?
Well, I didn't cover the whole trial. Some reporters, because of our schedules, some reporters are there every day, whereas we're not. There was a lot of talk about his past, but I didn't hear that so much. A lot of that came up in the paperwork that we saw,
Right.
and in various accounts. During the sentencing, Judge Denise Markle talked a lot about that. She, talked about, his past with drugs, his drug arrests, and his involvement with burglary and these crimes that continued even after the murder.
Wow. Now, Jill, I know, as you said, we have busy schedules, so you covered about 2 weeks of the trial. And, I mean, for people that haven't been to something like that, I mean, can you kind of explain what it's like? Is it, similar to kind of the TV layout of a trial? I mean, I've covered something similar before, and there are moments like that. And then there's also kind of uneventful moments. So, I mean, how did you find it when you were there?
Well, it is like it is on television. You've got your accused sitting up there next to his lawyer. You've got the prosecutor on the other side. You tend to watch. You look at the accused person who's just sitting there, in a suit usually, he was just kind of rocking back and forth most of the time. And while you knew the crime that he was charged with, you look at him and he looks like a normal person. I mean, you've seen pictures of him. It's hard to imagine that somebody, he's not a huge guy. He's not that menacing looking in many ways. It's hard to imagine. I think as someone who's not involved with this kind of thing every day, you just kind of look at him and you say, how could this be? And this picture is from the sentencing. And outside of this, on the sentencing day, he had handcuffs on and a T-shirt. But before that, he wore a suit. And he looked, more businesslike.
Right. Not like the stereotypical, what you would picture someone who could commit a violent crime.
It's hard to imagine that someone could do what he did.
Right. Yeah. And it was a violent
It was
murder.
very violent. Even the state's attorney said that he was on the scene that day. And he was emotional when he talked about that. He said, I remember going down there and it was just a horrific scene. And that was brought up a lot during the sentencing, too, that it was just such a violent crime.
Right. Now, Jill, you've been the editor of the Milford Mirror for over 10 years now, right?
Yes. I think since 1995, if I'm right.
So you've seen a lot of things happen in Milford,
yes.
Right? About 20 years or so. And what do you remember, and this was 9 years ago when this murder happened, how the community reacted?
Well, like I said, there were other big crimes happening at the same time. There was fear, I think, because at first, people didn't know if it was an isolated incident. They didn't know, if maybe there was somebody on the loose. But I'd say after a few weeks, people talking about it, that kind of died down a bit until the arrest.
Right. And now, covering the trial, I mean, did Alexandra's family speak at all?
Yes. Throughout the trial, her mother was there and her brother. They were there the whole time, and other family members, too. And this is something I can talk about. As a reporter, now when I went there, we see other reporters there, and those are our coworkers, in a way. So this is something that came up with one of the other reporters and I. We were talking, and so when you see a coworker, you kind of just talk, how was the weather? You're talking, you're chatting. And then during a break once, she came up to me and she said, I feel really bad because we're acting like this is just another day at work. And for the family, it's like a wake. They have to go through this every day. And we talked about that a lot, and we both felt, badly for just acting like this was another day at work. And I think that when I've covered other tragedies or other court situations, I've noticed that too, where you see, when the people aren't in the courtroom, you see the prosecutor and the attorney just talking, how was your day? I went golfing yesterday, and you're thinking, how can they be talking about this when all this is going on? So like I said, we felt really badly, and we tried, we were very determined not to be ourselves. And I have to say that we thought the family, felt that we were disrespectful, but apparently they didn't, because at the end of the day, they came up and they said, we want to thank you guys for being here and for,
for covering it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that, guilt is just everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's an interesting thing because you almost have to insulate yourself from it a little bit because you have to write about it objectively. And
Right.
I can remember my first year as a reporter in Massachusetts, I had to cover this awful trial, like a vehicular, murder. Somebody had hit somebody when they were driving drunk and killed them. Pregnant woman was killed. And I was sitting in that courtroom listening to her husband speak, the woman who had been killed, and I'm just bawling. And I'm like, okay, this is not professional. Like,
I think that's normal
sometimes
too.
it's so hard to not get like swept up in that emotion.
I think that both happen because I
Right.
noticed that, definitely at times, during the proceedings, I mean, I started to cry too. I mean, because it's very emotional. So as a reporter, you're almost both.
Yes.
You remove yourself and then you put yourself in.
Right.
And I think it's okay to be in the moment at the time when it's happening because you're not writing the story then. You're
Yeah.
not, and then you go back when you sit down and write what you wrote. That's when you kind of remove yourself from it and it's, just the facts, ma'am. Because you got some really, kind of touching quotes too from the family, from the prosecutor. We have a video we'll play shortly here of you that you shot of the prosecutor afterwards. And you had a lot of good words in there that could fill up the story to show
Yeah.
the emotion that you got that day.
Yeah, there was a lot of emotion. And, one other thing I can say, that people wouldn't see. Okay, so there are a lot of breaks during the trial. And one thing that one of the other reporters and I noticed was that this family that's grieving, we don't know if maybe there's something that needs to be done about this. During the breaks, they're just out in the hallway.
Yes, right.
Just kind of sitting there on the floor or wherever. And it almost seemed that there should be some place for them to be, maybe where they were isolated from people who were just talking
Right.
about
Right.
what they
Casually
did
and yeah.
and maybe even a little more respectful setting.
Yeah.
A little
But
waiting room.
That's
or
interesting. I
something.
felt the same way when you're out there on those breaks. And
Yeah.
it's
Because everybody's
just-
out there. And
Everybody's
if,
out there,
If,
people are
yeah,
coming
and
and
if the
going.
accused is out on bail, then everyone's out there. Both
Yeah.
attorneys at both sides. You'll often see them
Right.
chatting maybe beforehand, and everyone. It's everyone but the jury and the judge are kind of out there in the hallway
Yeah.
before the court's open.
I mean, it could be because they don't really, maybe they have space limitations in the courthouse too, and they don't really have any place to
Right.
put them.
But that's an interesting topic, if any courts would ever consider that, just kind of like a separate area. But I mean, wow. Yeah, that is always
They
a
are-
tricky situation. And then in those, do you approach them in that moment and ask for a quote, or do you kind of hang back?
Hang back. I tend to hang back.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's different. It's really kind of a difficult thing to cover. But how did the family react to the sentencing? Did they get to speak?
They spoke afterwards, and you'll see that the state's attorney was pleased with the sentence, and the family seemed pleased with the sentence. In fact, they said that they were glad that justice had been served. They were positive.
Eric, can we play that video of the state's attorney?
3 points. Judge Markle's a very experienced judge, and it's not every day that you get someone who combines committing the most heinous act imaginable with a criminal record that's that reprehensible. So I think that based on all the factors as we outline them, I think it's the appropriate sentence and it's a just verdict based on everything considered. 3 points. Judge Markle's a very experienced judge.
Thanks. That was State's Attorney Kevin Lawler speaking with Jill outside the courthouse after that. So, I mean, is there? It does seem like there is a sense of closure
Yes.
to this after 9 long years, particularly for this family of not knowing, or they had an idea of who it was, but they're not
Right.
being an actual trial.
No, there was
until
definitely
now.
a sense of closure that I could sense. They talked about, they said that, throughout the years, they always did something around Christmas, and they call her Xandra, in her memory. She had started several charities, one called Xandra's Kids, where she would give clothes and toys to inner city children. And around the holidays, they would make a donation. But the mom, like one of the reporters asked her, are you going to start a soup kitchen, which I believe was one of Xandra's goals. And her mom kind of said, well, Xandra was good at that stuff. I'm really not that good at those things. But they're going to try to keep parts of her, goodwill alive.
That's great. Wow. Well, Jill, at the Milford Mirror, you have a lot of emotional stories to cover. I mean, last year it was the Marin Sanchez murder,
Right.
and I know you're still covering that. I mean,
and there were times when, the accused murderer in that case was in the courthouse at the same time as Mr. Pugh.
Wow.
So.
Well, wow, yeah.
You're busy at the Milford Mirror. Well, I suggest that anyone that wants to know more on that case visit milfordmirror.com. Jill, so happy you could join us today on Behind the News. Thanks for talking about it. I know it was kind of a tough thing to cover, so we appreciate it.
Oh, certainly.
All right.
Thanks, Jill.
Well, we are going to take a break, and we'll be back with more Behind the News after this.
You need to see an orthopedist fast. Think Coastal Ortho Express in Norwalk. Don't wait hours in the ER. Save a trip and money by going straight to an orthopedic specialist at Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care in Norwalk. No appointment necessary. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, 203-845-2070. Open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, or call 203-845-2070. Fast.
Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics. Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332. 8332 or online at stratfordsmile.com.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com.
Are back live Behind the News, live from Palmer's Market in Darien. I'm Kate Czaplinski with John Kovach and Josh Fisher. Guys, taking a look at some of the top stories this week on our Hersam Acorn websites.
Kind of a sad end for the, maybe, let's hope it's not that sad of an end for the Shelton Bear.
I know.
Story we've been covering
He
for
was
weeks
tranquilized and moved.
I
and
know,
hopefully
John,
he finds a
but-
new
Far as
nice
we know.
place.
But they're
As
saying
far
they're
as we
bringing
know.
him to a heavily it sounds like when your parents tell you, that
Oh, yeah.
Fido
The
is
fish.
let to live on a farm.
When you flush it
know?
down the toilet, it goes to the
Yeah.
ocean. No, it's actually in the septic tank dead. So
Oh,
let's just
boy.
hope the bear.
Has a better fate.
Yeah, he's in a better place.
But that's our
with
top.
honey and everything.
Yeah, our
so
3 of the top stories this week are about that black bear in Shelton, because it was getting very close to homes and it was concerning,
Right.
and so officials tranquilized it and carried it out. The photos at SheltonHerald.com, I mean, they're sort of adorable and awful
It's a
at the
sleeping
same
bear,
time.
right?
It's like a sleeping bear, and they're carrying it, and
Yeah.
so definitely check that out. If you're watching us right now, you're seeing some of those up on the screen. And story we just talked about earlier in the show.
with Catarivas over in New Canaan, the John Milligan public hearing with the police commission, and as he said, that's going to be continuing on May 29th. Certainly worth checking out just the exchanges that are listed up there at ncadvertiser.com.
So interesting.
It is a fascinating story, and it's getting better by the day, to be honest with you.
And the Georgetown Saloon has new owners, which we talked about on Coffee Break
Yes.
earlier this week. But I feel like, you're
Well,
very familiar with the saloon, Josh.
What are you saying?
Interesting phraseology,
Interesting.
Kate.
Yeah, of course. The first newspaper I worked for, the Reading Pilot, which I started at in 2001, was directly spitting distance from the saloon, right across the street. Spent 9/11 in the saloon because they had a TV. I was drinking iced tea, but probably smoking a lot of cigarettes because that was But that's
habit.
how it
Don't
was.
do it, kids.
It's
that was a long
only
time
since we
ago.
moved that office that